Now I have already done this whole hat, and it turned out that I made the brim way too big. So I ripped it out and I wound my yarn onto a toilet paper tube so it straightens out again. And look at this. This is the foot came off of my glass cake plate, and it makes a great holder for my reused yarn. And I think that's cool. After you knit 12 rows from your last increase row, you want to start some short rows to increase for the front of the hat. Count 48 stitches to the center front and mark it just with a needle. And now you want to place markers 6 stitches to either side of the center front. So there's 12 stitches in the front. So that's a marker, 6 stitches at the center front, 6 stitches, a marker. And now the next marker goes 19 stitches from that marker. That's 25 stitches from the center front. Put a marker just to make sure everything is symmetrical. Now these are going to be increase markers, and these are where you're finished with the short rows, so that just so you can see how you're doing. I have my 20-inch cable in the hat. You can keep your 16 if you like that. Put a stitch marker for the end of round, and I won't see that again for a while. And knit to the first increase marker. Those are the ones marking off the 12 stitches in the center front. Alright, here's the first marker I came to. Just slip it and keep going. That's not the one you want. Now, like all my patterns, I'm working off of a checklist on my iPad in numbers, which is how it's so easy for me to rewrite a pattern when it comes out to look like a duck. So you knit to the first marker and you slip the marker, and I abbreviate that SM, and now you make one right. That means you lift this stitch and then knit it. And I call that make one right, and then I call this knit one. So these 2 stitches are 2 different instructions in the pattern. Here it is again up close. Make one right, you lift the stitch below the one on the needle, place it on the needle, and then knit it. And then knit the stitch that was sitting there before. So that's a make one right and a knit one. Now knit across to the other marker, and on this side we want to make one left. So we still pick up the stitch we did before, but now it's 2 stitches below, so we want to pick up what they call the grandmother stitch, and then you knit it through the back. But the reason you can tell you knit through the back is when you put this stitch on your needle, the leg that's facing to the right is on the back of the needle. So knit that one. You always want to knit the correct leg, which is the leg pointing to the right, to stop from twisting it. On this first increase, after the increase, you slip the marker and then you knit 3. And now it's time to do a short row. I want to knit the front again. The way I do short rows is called a Japanese short row. And I just knit the next stitch and then slip it back to the left needle. And then I take these little clippy markers and I slip it onto the working yarn and then turn my work and purl back. So I purl back across, all the way across the front, working all of this symmetrically, and purling back is the equivalent of knitting a plain row after the increases, like we did on the top of the hat. We knit an increase row and then we did a plain row, and this purl row constitutes that plain knit row, because on this side it's knit. So when you get to this marker, you slip that one too. You slip it, and now you knit 3. I'm sorry, you purl 3. So purl 3, and you can see I'm purling combination style. And now I want to wrap and turn the next stitch, which means I'm just going to purl it, and I'm going to put it back. And I'm going to put a marker on this working yarn. Now, when I purl, it makes the working leg of the stitch be in the back of the needle. It's twisted, but I want that twist. I want to keep that twist. So if you're a combination purler, slip it purl-wise. If you're not a combination purler, you're going to need to slip that stitch back to the other needle knit-wise to give it a little twist. And now I want to knit back. And on all the knit rows, you do that increase again. So when I get to this first marker, I slip it and I do my make one right. Try to do it without splitting the yarn underneath. Alright, so that's my make one right. That's my knit one, which somehow I got twisted. Oh, it's twisted because I was purling. I have to knit the back of the stitch after I do a purl row because I'm a combination knitter. If you purl the other way, overhand instead of underhand, then you don't have to knit through the back loop like I'm doing. Just knit the correct leg of the stitch. And at this side, going to make one left again. And slip the marker, and now I'm going to knit all the way to that marker that's on the back of that stitch that I'm calling. It's not wrapped and turned, so my instructions call this J-WRP-T. That stands for Japanese wrap and turn. So that's what that means. It's not really wrapped. So I'm calling this the wrap. The piece of yarn that this marker is on is what I'm referring to as the wrap. And for picking up the wrap, this is what I mean by picking up the wrap. Pick up the wrap and put it on the needle. Remove your little marker and knit both of those together. On the knit side, this is pretty straightforward because the stitch you want in the front is on the left, and you put your needle in from the left and it puts that knit stitch on the front of the work. So here's the stitch that I slipped back to the left needle. I'm going to lift up the wrap, which is the thing on the marker, and put it on the needle with the leg facing right in the front of the needle. And now I knit those two together so both of the right legs are in the front of the stitch, and I'm picking up this one first, and that one's going to fall to the back. So when I go through them this way, it pulls this front stitch, the left stitch, to the front, like that. Alright, after pick up wrap, knit one, that's the fourth stitch, so that makes me sure I got it right, so that's 4 stitches. And now I need to knit 2. And wrap and turn. So that's my knitting a stitch and slipping it back. Put my marker on the wrap, and now turn. And purl all the way back till I get to the other stitch marker like this one. To work the wrap on the purl side, pick up the wrap with your little marker and put it on the needle with the right leg, with the right leg on the back of the needle. You can go ahead and take the marker off. So now if you look at it from the knit side, both of these stitches have the leg leaning, the working leg leaning in the same direction on the back of the needle. So I need to put a needle in here going this way to make this come out on the top. So that means I have to purl through the back loop. Purling through the back loop is very hard. Actually, it's easier with this extra needle in there. Alright, so I got it. Alright, so that's my purl through the back loop and picking up a wrap. You can see both of the pieces of yarn around the stitch. So on the knit side, there it is. You can check and make sure you did it right. If you did it right, it'll look nice. So that looks nice. My column of knit stitches is going along just like it ought to. I'm sorry, you purl too, of course. And now, so you should have the 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches from last time, plus 2 that you just purled, and then purl 1 more and put it back, and that's called the Japanese wrap and turn. And I'll mark that piece of yarn and turn. And now you're on a knit row again. So every other row, you add 2 more to the end of your process here. I should clarify that. On every knit row, you're adding 2 stitches in the middle. You're not actually adding any on the sides. You're just adding how far you're going with your short rows. So every short row is 3 stitches further along, because picking up the wrap from the row before and then knitting 2 and then wrapping and turning again adds 3 stitches to each short row. And you'll keep doing that until you get to these markers on the edge. That's what these are for, to let you know when you're done doing short rows. On my next to the last increase row, I end up with 4 stitches between the last wrap and turn and the marker saying the short rows are over. I have 24 stitches between the front markers, and I've knit all the way to the last stitch before the marker, and that's the one that I wrap and turn. So that's the wrap and turn. So I turn and purl back to the other marker on the other side. Here's my last purl that I have to pick up a wrap. I will purl this through the back loop, and now I purl 2, and just like on the knit row, the last stitch before this marker is going to be my last wrap and turn. So mark that and turn, and this is the last short row. So now knit back and do one last set of increases at the markers at the front. So here's my increase marker, slip it, make one right, knit 24, 24, make one left, slip marker, and knit to the marker for the wrap. Here's the last wrap, pick that up, put it on the needle, remove the marker, knit those 2 together, and that's the last wrap picked up, and I don't need this anymore. The end of the short rows is upon us. And now you just knit the rest of the round. Finally, we're going to see the end of round marker again. Hey buddy, haven't seen you in forever. Alright, now we're going to keep knitting the next row. Alright, now I'm approaching my marker that marks the end of the short rows. So there's the short row marker, take that off, and here's the marker that's marking the wrap and turn on that last purl row. Take that off too. Instead of doing anything with that wrap, what you want to do on this stitch is lift the stitch below onto the needle with the wrap and turn stitch and knit those 2 together like that. And you'll see the stitch below is going at a funny angle. It's not really as nice as the other ones, but that is the way to make it not have a hole there. and then you keep knitting. Here's this again zoomed in. That's the marker for the end of short rows, and pick up the stitch below. Let me take this off. This is the marker for the short rows. Pick up the stitch below, place it on the needle, and knit it together with the stitch that was for the wrap and turn. You may recognize this move as the technique for jogless stripes for knitting in the round. And that's basically what I'm doing, is I'm trying to make it invisible that I've got 2 rows on this side and only 1 row on that side. When you come to the increase markers on this row, you can take those off. We're done with those now. This knit round is the last one that deals with any of the short row business. And after this, knit 2 plain rounds, then do a purl round that allows the fabric to fold over, and then 2 more knit rounds, and we'll use that to enclose a reinforcing cable.